Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to go over some of the books that are at the top of my bookish wish list, and hopefully this footage won't go all blurry even though I'm sitting here, because if it does, I think I'm going to turn insane. I have been in a bit of a funny reading mood lately, meaning that all of my branching out has not been good for me. I've been feeling like gravitating more towards the books that I know that I love, which are literary fiction or classics or books about real life people and situations. So you will find that on my wish list that I'm going to share with you today, it's primarily books that are about that topic, people that we can all relate to. No fantasy, no science fiction. I just want to go back to my roots and read what I really love to read. So you might see some of these books in an upcoming book haul, who knows. I know for sure that I'm definitely going to read some samples from these books before I go out and buy them, because I did this in a recent video. I read the first chapters of some books, and that was a really good insight into the book and whether I wanted to purchase it or not. Nothing beats hazelnut flavored coffee. I'm going to start with the two books that I found through my recent video about sampling some books and trying a chapter. The first book is obviously the Book of Essie by Megan something, let me just see, Megan McLean Weir. This book impressed me. Just the first chapter was very intriguing. It's basically about this girl who lives in a family that is famous nationwide because they are on television, they have their own reality TV show. But the thing about this family is that they are very religious, and in the first chapter we hear about our main character whose mother discusses with the TV crew whether the baby she's having should be aborted or not, because the young girl is pregnant outside the marriage, which is not good in their eyes. So it sounds like a book that has a plot that I've never read before, and that's what makes me very excited to read it. It's also a pretty book. I like the cover. The other book I found through that video is The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. This book impressed me because of the first chapter, which was very brutal, but in a good way. I think this one is more about Ireland in World War II, and it's about our main character who is a boy, and that's all I know. But I know that I really like the other book by John Boyne, the one called The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, and ever since then I've been meaning to read more of his novels, so I think this is a great place to start. And I think it's definitely going to be a book for me because of the writing and that very first chapter, which was very engrossing. I did find some fantasy books in that video I did about Try a Chapter, which also intrigued me, but because of my funny reading mood these days, I'm going to stay clear of fantasy and not read those or purchase them in the near future. Maybe someday, but not right now at least. But let's get into the books that I haven't mentioned yet and that I'm probably going to read some samples from before I go out and purchase them. First we have The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which is a book that has been on my wish list for quite some months now, since I read her The Great Alone. Actually, let me just find that book. I am definitely getting too old for this. Ever since I read this book last autumn, I don't remember, maybe it was spring, I have been intrigued to read more by her, and I think that The Nightingale is her most famous piece of work because it seems to be a lot of people's favorites. It's about World War II once again, and that's a subject that I'm not very happy to read about, because I find that I've read a lot of books about that era, and while it is very engrossing to read about, it can also be a bit too much sometimes. But for this book I want to read it because of the author and because of the great hype it has received. Let's see what else I have on my list. Yes, I also have another book I want to show you. Lisa Genova's Every Note Played. This is her most recent release, and the reason why I want to read that book is because I have previously read her Still Alice. This is the Danish cover. This one is also a movie starring Julianne Moore, and I find that Lisa writes books that are very compelling when it comes to people with diseases that affect their family life and their life in general. This one is about a 50-year-old woman who one day finds out that she suffers from Alzheimer's. The main character is a university professor, and naturally this disease ruins her career and her life in general. So it's a very heartbreaking but captivating and beautiful story. I've also read Life of the O'Briens by this author, and I don't recall the exact disease that novel is about, but I do remember that I liked that one as well. So I'm intrigued to read her newest release, and this one is about a man who is a pianist, and that's one thing that intrigues me. I love pianists. I find that the way they can play the piano and do a concert and with all that stress still play beautifully, that's a very intriguing thing to me. So that's one thing that has me compelled to read this book. But also the fact that naturally he suffers from a disease that makes him incapable of playing the piano. It's about how that affects his career and how it is such a hard journey for him to realize that he has this disease. And I naturally don't know too much about how this plays out, but it's a book that intrigues me, and it's one that I think I'm going to get for my Kindle, just because it's not a book that I need to own in person, and I can't explain why that is. But those are my thoughts at the moment about this book. I also have on my wish list Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney, and this is going to be my first book by Sally Rooney. I've never read anything by her, but I have heard excellent things about this novel, which is apparently about a couple of friends, or a couple who become friends with an elderly couple, and it's about their conversations over dinner and how they form a relationship. And apparently it's a really good book, and what intrigues me about it is that I love the ambience of being at a dinner party and talking and getting familiar with each other and forming this very close relationship. It sounds like Hugo to me, so it's a book that I'm intrigued to read, but it's definitely one I'm going to read a sample from, because I want to see if the writing style and the plot and the storytelling is something for me before I actually purchase the book. Then we have some classics, and it's been a while since I last read a classic and I've been missing it, so I think that July is going to be the month in which I'm going to pick up another classic. But for now I'm going to talk about an author that I have discovered through the Persephone Classics, and that is Dorothy Whipple. First, I'm going to show you two books I've read of hers that I absolutely loved and that make me want to read more by her. The Priory and also Someone at a Distance. Beautiful novels, and they are just about life in general. They are about families and troubles arising and how their relationships change and the dynamics change. It seems like Dorothy Whipple writes the exact kind of books for me, so needless to say I would like to get more of hers. And I have seen two books around from Persephone that I want to get my hands on. The first one is called They Were Sisters. Apparently this one is about three sisters and their relationship, and while it sounds pretty plain, I think that Dorothy Whipple is excellent at creating these amazing stories that keeps you hooked from beginning till end. So it's one that I want to read, and the same goes for the newest release of Persephone, which is Young Anne, and this one is about Anne, whom we follow from born till she is 20 years old. So it's a coming of age story. It's one that I know my heart is going to love. So those two books are books that I want to add to my Persephone collection and hopefully read and adore. I don't think that Dorothy Whipple is able to disappoint me. I will say though that her endings tend to be a bit too idyllic and happy for my taste, but nevertheless I still really enjoy the journey that we go through when reading her books, and that's enough for me. Let's see what else I've got. Oh yeah, I also got a memoir, because you know I love my memoirs once in a while, and I stumbled across I Am 17 Brushes with Death by Maggie O'Farrell, and I have to go get another book. I want to show you this book I've read of Maggie O'Farrell's. This is fiction and I read it last year and absolutely loved it. This Must Be the Place, and it's set in different places in the world. Amongst others, we have America and Great Britain. I was intrigued to read more from her, so when I heard that she has a new book out, which is a memoir, to begin with, I actually didn't know if I was interested enough in Maggie's own life to read a memoir, but then I've heard so many excellent things about this memoir, and also I've heard that it's basically about 17 incidences that Maggie has had with death throughout her life. And that sounds pretty interesting. I mean, that sounds like a lot, and I want to know about these incidences. So it's one that I think I'm going to actually read if I like the first chapters. It's definitely on my wish list because I love memoirs, and I think that this topic of death sounds pretty intriguing for some reason. I do have one last author which I once again have to go fetch a book to talk about. I clearly haven't prepared well for this video, but this is good exercise, I have to say. Here you go. Don't you just love it when you have a library that you can go to and reach for a book? I mean, I like this feeling. So the author I'm going to talk about is Pat Conroy. My former French teacher gave me this book and she asked for me to read it. She said that it's a great American novel and that I should read it and see if I like it, and I ended up loving it so much. And I'm talking about this very old copy of The Prince of Tides. It's a great epic novel set in America about this family who live on a ranch. That's the overall frame of the story, but it also comes with very difficult topics of violence and troubles in family life, and it was just an epic telling that I fell head over heels in love with. Ever since then, I've been meaning to read another book of Pat Conroy's. I don't know why I haven't gotten to it yet, but I think now is the time just because I really want to. And as I said, I've been in the mood to read those kinds of books that I know I'm going to love. So I have two books on my wish list by Pat Conroy. The first one is The Great Santini and the second one is Beach Music. Both books are about America and Americans living in America. They are about families and that's it. But it's two books that I think are some of his most popular ones. Especially Beach Music was a book that a viewer recommended to me very recently in a video. So I added that to my list, and then The Great Santini just seems to be one of his most popular books out there. So if I can find some beautiful covers of these novels, then I'm all for it, and I think that I might actually get both books at the same time. I don't know why, but I just want to immerse myself in his writing, so that's the plan for now. But I might also just get one of his books and start with that one. I don't know yet. I might not even get any of these books in the near future, but I'm pretty sure I will. I'm just saying so that I don't put any pressure on myself. And that is it for this video. That is it for the books that are on the top of my wish list. I hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope that all of this video was in focus. Thank you so much for watching, and until my next video, happy reading.